If I told you that overall economic demand was cooling off, I mean, common sense dictates you'd expect material prices to drop, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's just basic textbook economics.
Right. But right now, we are staring down this 49% chance of recession, while at the exact same time, construction input materials are spiking.
Oh, massively spiking.
Yeah, at a 12.6% annualized rate.
Yeah.
It's an economic paradox, honestly. And it's one that could absolutely bankrupt contractors who aren't paying attention.
It's a brutal contradiction.
Yeah.
And it really means the historical playbooks for, surviving an economic downturn, they simply do not apply right now.
No, they don't.
The signals we're seeing in the market are aggressive, they're immediate, and they require a completely different defensive strategy from you.
And that is exactly the core mission for today's deep dive.
Yeah.
We've got a stack of market intelligence from March 20th, 2026, and we are looking at this strictly through the lens of a construction business owner.
Someone who's trying to scale into a legacy company.
Exactly. You cannot build that legacy if you're flying blind. So we're going to synthesize these massive macroeconomic threats, the sudden influx of billions in foreign energy investments.
Which is wild, by the way.
So wild. And some explosive breakouts in construction technology. We're breaking this down so that you can strategically stress test your backlog. So what does this all mean?
Well, it means we have to start with the most immediate threat to your bottom line right now, which is the macro squeeze.
Right.
Because before you can build the future of your company, you literally have to survive the present.
Gotta keep the lights on.
Exactly. So let's look at the recession risk first. The AI-based forecasting model from Moody's Analytics is currently placing a 49% probability on a U.S. recession occurring within the next 12 months.
Which is incredibly high compared to the rest of the street. I mean,
Yeah.
Goldman Sachs is sitting way down at a 25% probability.
Yeah, and JP Morgan is at, 35%?
Yeah, 35%, yeah. But what makes that Moody's number so concerning to me isn't just that it's the most pessimistic, it's the historical track record of this specific model.
Right, because when you look back at the data, this specific Moody's model crossed that 50% threshold right before the recessions in 2001, 2007, and 2020.
Every single time.
Every single time it flashed red with this level of intensity, an actual recession followed. And there's tangible physical data driving that algorithm, Mark Zandi, the chief economist at Moody's, pointed out a very specific pattern.
The oil spikes, right?
Yes. Nearly every single economic recession since World War II, with the unique exception of the global pandemic, has been preceded by a sudden spike in oil prices.
Wow.
And right now, oil is flirting dangerously close with $100 a barrel due to all these global supply anxieties.
And you have to add to that the fact that 16 of the last 19 job reports from the Bureau of Labor Statistics have had downward revisions.
Oh, that mechanism is fascinating.
Yeah.
And terrifying.
It's totally terrifying. The initial rosy pictures we get about a strong labor market, the numbers that drive consumer confidence and federal policy, they're essentially mirages. Months later, they just quietly get revised downward.
Which tells us the foundational strength of the economy is much weaker than the headline numbers suggest. But this actually brings us back to the paradox you mentioned at the top of the show.
Right. Let me use an analogy to frame this because I really need to understand the mechanics here.
Go for it.
So the economy right now is like driving a truck into a thick fog. That fog is your recession risk. It's cooling demand.
Okay, I follow.
But at the same time, you've got a brick resting on the gas pedal. The supply chain is just pumping out massive heat in the form of skyrocketing material costs.
Yeah.
So if a recession is looming and demand is theoretically cooling off, shouldn't material prices be dropping instead of exploding?
What's fascinating here is the absolute disconnect between local demand and global supply chains. You're dealing with structural supply shocks that operate completely independently of whether someone, wants to build a new office park in your city.
So the local demand almost doesn't matter.
Exactly. I mean, Smart Business Automator's market intelligence report tracks material price trends by category, and the numbers illustrate this perfectly. Construction input prices jumped 1.3% in February alone.
Which translates to that brutal 12.6% annualized penalty on your margins.
Precisely. And the individual material breakdowns show us the why behind those numbers. Natural gas is up 30%, copper is up 27.1%.
That's grief.
Steel is up 20.9%, but the really critical metric is diesel. Diesel saw a 13.9% jump in a single month.
Okay, let's unpack the diesel aspect? Because it's not just about, the cost to fill up an excavator on a Tuesday morning, is it?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Diesel is essentially a hidden tax on every single physical object you use on a job site.
A hidden tax.
Yeah, it accounts for roughly 30% of the price increases in all processed goods because it requires massive amounts of diesel energy to mine the raw copper out of the earth.
Right, and to transport it.
Exactly. It takes diesel to power the freight trains moving that ore to a refinery. It takes diesel to forge the steel, and then diesel to truck those finished I-beams to your laydown yard. So your costs are being driven entirely by global energy constraints.
So the Federal Reserve looks at this oil-driven inflation, they get terrified, and they hold interest rates high.
Yep.
Which means commercial developers suddenly can't afford to finance new projects because borrowing costs are too steep.
And at the same time, contractors are getting their profit margins eaten alive by the raw cost of steel and copper. It is a uniquely toxic financing environment right now.
It absolutely is,
No.
which forces a very strategic pivot for anyone listening. Because if local commercial funding is freezing up, developers and major contractors are being forced to look elsewhere for capital.
Right, and that brings us to the lifeline.
Yeah, if the private commercial market is toxic, where is the money actually flowing?
It's flowing into heavily subsidized mega projects, specifically funded by foreign capital.
This is a staggering shift.
Yeah.
I mean, we are looking at Japan casually pledging up to $73 billion for U.S. energy investments.
$73 billion.
And that's just a fraction of a massive $550 billion broader commitment they're making through the year 2029.
And the allocations are incredibly targeted, too. We aren't talking about speculative real estate here. Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report tracks these massive construction opportunities, and you can see they are putting $40 billion directly into nuclear power.
Wow.
Yeah, specifically partnering with GE, Vernova, and Hitachi to build small modular reactors, the BWRX 300 model.
The Nancy in Alabama. Right?
Exactly. Then you have a $17 billion natural gas plant going up in Pennsylvania and a $16 billion gas plant slated for Texas.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, specifically regarding those nuclear small modular reactors.
Right.
Because historically, building a nuclear power plant in the United States was like trying to build a custom bespoke billionaire's mega mansion.
Oh, an absolute nightmare.
Right. It takes 15 years. Every single pipe is custom fitted and goes over budget by billions of dollars. Just look at the Vogtle plant in Georgia.
Yep.
But the specs on these new BWRX 300s are totally different. They output 300 megawatts, but the build time is slated for just 24 to 36 months. And they have a 90% smaller physical footprint. So my question is, are we shifting from decade-long bespoke mega projects to standardized, repeatable products? Is this the assembly line moment for nuclear power?
We really are. And it changes the entire calculus for infrastructure construction. You're moving from a custom engineering nightmare to a standardized product. And the reason we can trust that this is a credible reality, not just some concept, is the underlying supply chain.
What do you mean?
Well, Japan Steelworks currently owns roughly 80% of the global market for heavy reactor component forging.
80%.
80%. They possess the physical, heavy industrial infrastructure required to literally stamp these reactor parts out on an assembly line scale.
That is incredible. But let's bring this back to the listener. Say you own a mid-sized commercial construction firm in Texas or Tennessee. You don't have the clearance, the insurance, or the technical expertise to build the core of a nuclear reactor.
Obviously not.
Right, so how does a $73 billion Japanese investment actually help you survive a commercial recession?
That is the crucial aha moment here. You do not need to be the prime contractor building the reactor core. You just have to look at the ripple effect. When a $16 billion gas plant lands in a region, it requires thousands of specialized workers.
And those workers need infrastructure.
Exactly. They need roads expanded to handle the daily traffic. They need temporary housing built. The municipality has to massively upgrade its water treatment facilities to handle the influx.
Oh, I see.
There are security perimeters, auxiliary storage facilities, concrete laydown yards. The direct power plant jobs create a massive need for surrounding infrastructure.
So it's the subcontracting tiers. You're positioning your mid-sized firm to win the secondary and tertiary infrastructure that surrounds the mega project.
Exactly. The mega project acts as a massive economic anchor. If you can secure those secondary contracts, you're essentially building a multi-year, heavily funded buffer around your business. You're insulating your backlog from the commercial retail slowdown we discussed in segment 1.
I love that.
Yeah.
But it brings up a very practical operational hurdle. To win those secondary contracts and to survive the current material cost squeeze while you wait for those projects to break ground, you have to be ruthlessly efficient internally.
You do. You have to radically increase your internal efficiency, strip the bureaucratic and operational waste out completely. And we're seeing the market respond to the survival instinct right now in the tech sector.
The breakouts in construction tech are completely wild. I mean, Alphabet's Moonshot Factory X just spun out a company called Anori with $26 million in early funding.
Yeah, that's huge.
They're heavily backed by massive players. And what they're doing is using AI to automatically cross-reference architectural models against local zoning codes.
Right.
They're trying to cut construction permitting times from a multi-year nightmare down to literally a few weeks. Right out of the gate, they're targeting 3 to 6 story multifamily builds.
It's a massive leap forward. But it's not just the high-end experimental AI companies.
Right.
Look at the broader, everyday software adoption rates across the industry. Contractors are outsourcing and digitizing at unprecedented rates just to survive.
They really are. Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report highlights these massive buying signals. We are seeing user adoption and new license purchases for residential estimating services spike by an absurd 42,950%.
It's staggering.
Cloud-based project management software licenses are up 21,200%. And general construction management software just logged its 10th consecutive day of record growth, up 425%.
You have to understand the mechanics behind those numbers. Those aren't just companies deciding it would be nice to upgrade their iPads, you know?
Right, they're survival metrics.
Exactly. Contractors realize they can't afford a single miscalculated bid. They can't afford a lost week of scheduling due to bad communication. They're basically building digital armor to protect their margins.
I like that. Digital armor. But I have to offer some skeptical pushback here, specifically regarding the Anori AI permitting tool.
Okay.
Let's imagine it works perfectly. Let's say Anori successfully cuts the permitting process from years down to weeks. Does that actually help builders right now? Or does it just flood an already hyper-expensive market with unbuildable, approved plans that there simply isn't enough human labor to execute?
This raises an important question. It really highlights the exact paradox of construction technology right now.
Right.
Because if you use AI to entirely remove the bureaucratic permitting bottleneck, the pressure within the system doesn't just evaporate. It instantly transfers down the pipe. It shifts entirely onto the physical job site. It becomes a bottleneck of labor availability and safe execution.
Yeah, if you suddenly have 5 times as many projects breaking ground on a Tuesday because the permit's cleared instantly, the chaos on the job site is going to multiply.
Exponentially, which perfectly explains why we are suddenly seeing such aggressive moves from safety regulators. They see this acceleration coming.
The new OSHA initiative, right?
Exactly. OSHA just launched a major new initiative specifically targeting small businesses to improve safety. Small to mid-sized contractors are the ones adopting these efficiency tools the fastest to survive, but they're often the ones without dedicated full-time safety officers.
That makes total sense.
And at the exact same time, North Carolina just launched a massive state-level struck-by safety initiative. The regulatory bodies are reminding the industry that rapid digital efficiency cannot outpace basic safety and compliance. You can accelerate a zoning permit with a silicon chip, but you cannot safely accelerate the swing radius of a tower crane.
That is such a vital reality check. So to summarize where we are, we've got a looming 49% domestic recession risk-driving stagflation. We have a $73 billion Japanese lifeline flowing into energy mega projects, and contractors are desperately adopting AI to survive the squeeze. But I know none of this is happening in a vacuum.
It isn't, and this is perhaps the most critical layer to understand. Global instability is increasingly the hidden hand dictating the U.S. construction market. All these domestic pressures don't exist in a vacuum.
So let's look at the global intel brief, because the mechanics here are fascinating. And to be clear, we're just impartially reporting the facts here.
Right, purely objective.
We are seeing incredibly tense situations in the Middle East. There are openly discussed doomsday scenarios involving potential attacks on oil and gas infrastructure by both sides of the conflict. Former President Trump has also openly issued warnings regarding strikes on regional energy facilities.
And purely objectively, the mere threat of those massive facilities going offline connects directly to that $100 a barrel oil risk and the inflation we talked about in segment 1.
Just exactly. Geopolitical tension creates the energy scarcity, which drives the diesel spike, which eats your margins on steel.
But it extends far beyond just oil. Look at the international construction signals right now. It's rapid fire.
What do we see?
The UK just launched a first of its kind net zero carbon building standard. Singapore just awarded an $8 billion expansion contract for the Marina Bay Sands resort to Wohub. Australia just locked in a $200 million Vina Energy battery deal. And there's an ongoing wage surcharge dispute up in Manitoba, Canada.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if I'm pouring concrete for a mid-rise in Dallas, Texas, how does a net zero mandate in the UK or a drone strike on a pipeline half a world away actually impact my daily operations?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it all comes down to the global absorption of specialized materials. When the UK mandates strict net zero standards, massive amounts of specialized green building materials are siphoned toward Europe to meet that regulatory demand. When Australia builds massive battery arrays, they absorb global lithium and copper supplies. These global events pull raw materials away from the U.S. commercial market.
Creating scarcity.
Exactly. It directly dictates that 13.9% diesel fuel cost for your bulldozer operating in Texas.
It makes the global feel incredibly local.
It does, and that interconnectedness is exactly why you have to watch where the defensive capital is moving. We're seeing a massive pivot toward heavy government and defense work. Like AECOM, they just landed a prime position on the $151 billion MDA SHIELD contract.
For those who aren't familiar, MDA is the Missile Defense Agency, $151 billion allocated for federal defensive infrastructure.
Right. So amidst the Moody's 49% recession warning, heavy government and defense infrastructure work like the SHIELD contract is rapidly becoming the safest, most insulated sector for contractors.
Because a 49% recession risk doesn't stop the Missile Defense Agency from pouring concrete.
Exactly. It's the ultimate safe harbor. Follow the heavily subsidized capital. But, before we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with a completely different angle to consider. A brand new concept that builds on everything we've explored today.
Let's hear it.
If tech platforms like Anori actually do succeed in eliminating pre-construction permitting delays, and if these modular reactors and massive foreign investments solve the energy grid bottleneck, we're effectively going to fix the money and the bureaucracy.
Right.
But if we solve those two things, will the construction industry's ultimate crisis immediately pivot from a lack of capital and bureaucracy to a pure human capital crisis?
Oh, wow.
Right. Will our biggest problem simply be finding enough skilled human hands to actually build the massive future we've so rapidly designed?
That is a brilliant and chilling thought to mull over. Because once the digital friction is removed, the friction falls entirely onto the physical shoulders of the labor force. And that is exactly why you, the listener, need to evaluate your business mechanics right now.
Start today.
Look at your labor pipeline, look at your estimating software, and stress test your backlog against these specific recession scenarios. Don't wait for a 49% probability to become reality. We want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive. To keep getting this level of insight, please subscribe, rate, review, share, and visit smartbusinessautomator.com.